Did you ever want to write and illustrate your own books? Today we talk to Lori Taylor, who does just that, starting right now.
Welcome to the Weird and Wacky Planet's Nature Just Got Real podcast for kids. Join KB Carr, author of the Weird and Wacky Planet series, with Chuck Darwin, Tito, and Captain Jack, as they bring you the real skinny on what's really going on in the natural world. And now, here's your host, KB Carr.
Hello, Planeteers. Today's episode, we are going to talk to author, artist, and illustrator Lori Taylor, and she writes the Holly Wild book series, well, as a few others too, and she's going to give us some insights as to how that all happened. So I hope you enjoyed this interview. Also, I want to say hello to our new listeners from Austria. That is super cool. Thank you for listening. And now, here's our interview with Lori Taylor. Hello, today's guest is author, artist, and illustrator, I did it, Lori Taylor, who's actually a personal friend of mine. And she is the author of the Holly Wild series. For kids. It's an awesome series. It's a fiction series, yes, but it's show them
it's a realistic fiction.
Yes, but it's set in nature. It's a nature science fiction series for kids that I highly recommend. So I'm going to let Lori introduce herself and tell us a little bit about yourself, Lori. How did you get started doing all this?
Well, when I was a kid, I always start when I do school programs and stuff. I always talk about when I was a kid, and I grew up in the city in Pontiac, and so being a city kid, I was 5 years old. We moved out to the country, and we lived in Clarkston, and it was wild out there, and it was trees and grasses and ponds and fields and just very wild. And so I was smitten but deathly afraid of all the critters out there. Everything was so different than the city. And so my mother taught us to be afraid of everything out there.
It's her fault. Blame the mom.
Yeah. It's like, when you walk to the bus stop, watch out for the badgers. And I'm like, I don't even know what a badger is. So I was, I don't know if I see one,
it's probably not going to attack you at a bus stop. Probably not going to do it.
And so, and then my neighbor said, to be afraid of dragonflies because they'll sew up your lips. And so
I'd never heard that one.
Oh, I know, there were some great ones, and foxes and bobcats I would hear outside my bedroom window screaming in the woods. And so it was all of that, but I wasn't afraid of snakes. And that's so funny because
I recall that about you.
Yeah. I do. I love my pet snakes, and I love chasing the snakes in my home around here now, because they're so cool.
So you kind of just went back to nature, being from there and then being very afraid of it. And then you were a city person for a while, weren't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So being a city kid, and I've always lived in the country, but when I got married and then raised my kids in Goodrich, we had a little bit of a wild area behind our house where I found artifacts and stuff, and that was cool. But I've always wanted to live in the woods, and that's where I am today, in the heart of the Manistee National Forest. So
I love that. Yep, I love that.
Just outside the door, porcupines and bears and snakes and everything.
And endangered turtle species, which I want to come out one day, and we're gonna make an endangered turtle species video.
Absolutely. Yeah. We just released a map turtle, and she was a good sized 10-inch map turtle that my business partner had rescued. A car had hit it, and so we put it in a little hospital in our den and we just released her. She was good. She was raring to go.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
yeah,
That is really awesome.
so
And
I learned
you've
from
got
what we had.
Blandings turtles, right? Out there?
You what?
You have like Blandings turtles out there?
Blandings? Yep,
Hmm.
yep. We've got blandings. There's wood turtles. That's another one that people love to see them, and you can't move them out of their home territory. They can never be released because they wander around looking for the rest of their lives for their home.
Right.
And
Oh.
working at a nature center, I learned a lot about that. And I used to have to feed the snapping turtle, and which was always a fun thing because that head would shoot up for the food like a good 6 inches out of the water. So you'd have to make sure you had your fingers and arm out of the way. Feeding the rat snakes and all the critters at the nature center, another big learning experience for me.
I'm
So,
sure. I'm sure. And I know you have some unusual pets right now,
I do. It's
which
like a little zoo here. Yeah.
tell us what you got over there.
So I can't even remember which one came first anymore because I've just been taking care of them. But I do have a corn snake again. I had a corn snake, and then when we moved to the woods, I adopted him out to a school that had their corn snake had died. So Kenny went to go live with them, and
Kenny. I remember Kenny.
Kenny, the
Kenny.
corn snake, and so now I have Pip, Pippi Longstocking, because when
Oh,
she sheds her skin, it's a long stocking. So I kind of name my critters after storybook characters, and then I have a couple goldfish, Ivy and Bean, and Wilbur P. Nut is my hamster, and
aw.
um, let's see, who am I missing? Bunzo, another little rescue bunny that he gets run of the house when he's not being naughty. And
Aw.
I raised rabbits for about 6 years with my daughter. So, and this little guy is just a naughty house bunny. The coolest critter of all that I have. I mean, they're all really cool. But then Luna, my axolotl, and so she's really awesome. I've had her, I think, almost 2 years now. And so they are an endangered species. They're called the Mexican walking fish. And they're so cool. It's like it's a salamander who's in a permanent nymphal stage. So she's got the little wiggly, rami like gills, and
Oh.
she crawls. So she's got little feet, crawls on her mountain, and I feed her one worm a day, and so she's really awesome. She can never come out of the water, and they're just amazing creatures.
Oh, that's the one I'm the most excited about. I did have one of those. I did a chapter in one of my books about the axolotl
Oh,
and
awesome.
yeah, and all their little particularities. And I would just love it. One day I'm going to have one. I just lost my last goldfish. She was 5.
Mm,
Yeah, and I'd lost the 2 previous 7-year-olds, and so we're just going to give the tank a rest for now. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I put my goldfish, they're in a horse trough out on my porch. And so they've got a nice big pond. And
Nice.
I've got the screened in porch so the raccoons and the bears won't go shopping, although they could if they wanted. And
Saw the bear video on your on your Facebook page. You banging on stuff trying to scare the bear away there. He
yeah,
didn't look that
that's
intimidated. I'm just gonna say.
it was kind of hesitant, like, what's she doing? I just don't know what she's doing.
Woman's making a lot of noise, man. What's going on?
Yeah, it was really cool because we're told, and I follow the DNR rules and everything. It's like you're supposed to discourage them, and they're awesome to see, but up close is not a personal favorite of mine. And going back to childhood, that's one of the big fears I had as a kid. And my dad taking us up north and showing me claw marks on a tree, and he's like, bears. And ever since then, even in my Holly Wild books, Holly Wild wears bear bells. So actually seeing one and having it come closer to me to sniff, and that picture of that bear sniffing and the ears forward, listening to see what I was. Because they have poor eyesight, but their nose is really good. And yeah, so when I turned around in the video, that's when the bear started advancing.
I know. Advancing, yes. Yes.
Okay, this isn't working.
Better you than me. I'd probably been out there going, hi, hi, hi. What can I do for you? What do you need? What can I give you? Want to move in? Yeah.
And that's where,
Yeah.
you know, with black bears, and like with anything, they're wild, and we want to keep them wild.
Yeah.
And because we had a girl in Traverse City some years ago that encountered a black bear on a trail. She was 12 years old and wanted to pet it, and it mauled her. She survived. People heard it, but you know, in a city setting, you know, you can't treat them like
they're wild animals, and they need to be really that has to be respected.
Right.
Yep.
So here I've got my bear skull.
Ooh, the skull.
Yes, this is one that I ended up getting from the nature center that I worked at. So when you see how that jaw can open, that's enough reason right there to discourage them.
Right.
And
yep. Yeah.
So I had to make lots of noise, and it was cool. It was really cool. But I got my granddaughter out there, and it's like, oh my gosh. You know,
right. Exactly. Now you did a good job. At first he didn't look too intimidated, but he did get the hint, and off he went.
Yeah, he did.
That's funny. All right, tell me how the Holly Wild series got started. How did you start writing those?
Well, you know, I didn't expect to write them, and it all started on Beaver Island, and I brought all my books with me to help. The props, they helped me remember. But it all started on Beaver Island years ago when I went, and being a nature geek that I am, I found something incredibly unusual. And it was on the shore, and it looked like an arm. It was as long as an arm and as thick as an arm, and it looked like leech marks all over it. I'm like, oh my God, what is it? I've never seen that. So I took my daughter and friends, and we went down, and they're like, oh my God, it's a human arm. And then, you know, it's like, oh, I think it's a prehistoric snake. So, and that's actually a true story. So we ended up running the strange, creepy thing into the Central Michigan University Biological Station. Say that 3 times. CMU Bio Station. And, during a horrible storm, and with hail pelting us and everything. Well, they ended up having a tornado that day out on Lake Michigan. It was that bad. So we went in and found out what it was, and I was so embarrassed. And it's like, it wasn't a snake, it wasn't an ancient tree. You have to read the book to find out what it is.
But it wasn't an arm, so that's good.
And actually, because it looked like a snake, it looked like a tree, it looked like a pine snake. And I'll tell you anyway because we're friends. But it's rhizome from the pine snake, and it looked like a pine snake, but the pine snake is also known as the yellow pondweed, and the rhizomes look like a giant snake, and it looks like it's made of pine. So the rhizomes are down in the water, and beavers love eating them. They're full of starch. They send oxygen up to the leaves. Those were the leech marks on that.
What is the rhizome?
It's like the root. It's like the main root, and it's sunk in the water, and the pond lily shoots up. The leaves shoot up from that. So it makes all the energy down there, and it releases the oxygen to the leaves and all of that. So a beaver had chewed that because it's a popular beaver food, and it had floated up and onto the shore. And that's when I found out. I was so embarrassed. It's like, it's not an arm, you know.
That would have freaked me out. But
so
cool.
That's what started. It was such a silly story. It's like, oh my God. And I call myself the bumbling naturalist. I run into nature and find out what it was and learn about it. So
that's pretty much me. Yep. Yep, that's what I got going on.
And then after that, I was artist in residence, which is an artist who lives in a park for the Sleeping Bear National Lakeshore. So I got to live in the park for 3 weeks, and that came out with the next book was Let Sleeping Bear Dunes Lie. Now the books are on nature, and Holly Wilde is the main character, the protagonist, and she learns by bumbling into nature and finding out. And so Sleeping Bear is one of the special areas when I was a kid. And we'd go up there, and I was mesmerized with the story of Mother Bear swimming across the lake with her cubs. So this one, I think, is my favorite book. All the books are funny. They have real science in them, but I teach it in a funny way. And I don't push it in your face, but the stories help kids connect. And, you know, I have so many adults that read them and laugh.
Well, and so Holly is really kind of you.
Yes.
Or based on you, but she's a child.
Right, right.
And how old is Holly? She's like 12?
She's 11.
She's 11. Okay.
Yeah. She goes 10 to 11 in the book, and it took several years to develop her because she looked very young, and I had her young. But to reach an older audience, to understand the science, because I love using, number one, the humor, and having kids understand that, and then the science and things that I learned when I was a seasonal naturalist, and having kids learn that they're stewards of all of this out there. So it's just a great way to do that, and I enjoy it because they're so funny. Sometimes I get to laughing while I'm writing, and you know.
Well, I like that. I like that about that series. But what is your goal with the series? Like for kids, are they? What is the kind of, what do you want kids to get out of the series?
What I want them to get out is to, number one, be curious, and to, and like with me, not to be afraid. A lot of people, and when I used to bring the snake into school, would be afraid of snakes. Usually the adults were afraid of snakes. And it's like, learn about them, read about them, have observations and experiences with them, and learn and make your own decision. Right. So it's presenting things that are new experiences for kids, have them learn about it, and staying curious with things that are going out in the, going on out in the world. Be a superhero for, the little guys like worms and water bears and things like that, so.
You bet. You bet. And so, and you're illustrating your book, you're writing the books, and you're also the illustrator, because you're a very, very talented artist and illustrator. So, but you were doing that before the books, weren't you?
Correct. Yeah. I like to call myself a storyteller with pictures and words. And I never know which comes first, the stories or the pictures. But yeah, I was drawing, and ever since I was a kid, they used to throw crayons into my playpen to keep me entertained when I was 3 years old. So I drew as a kid and did all kinds of nature things after moving to the country. But when I got into high school, I had a microscope and took science classes and drew things, and didn't know where I wanted to go as far as a career. So I ended up roundabout illustrating and doing nature drawings for Oakland County Parks and Recreation. So drawing coyote poop, so people know what it looks like, having scat, so you can tell. And I had to do the research with that, like
what's
dog,
out there? Yep.
Coyote, and so people would know the difference. So I was doing that for about 7 years, plus taxidermy for them. You get to know the ins and outs of animals, and that was a volunteer thing. So I learned a lot from the nature center. So by drawing all of that stuff and doing nature art, it just, everything went to books, and especially with humor, because I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian.
People tell me I'm funny too, but not always on purpose. So not always intentionally.
Yeah. Kind of role. but I collect all kinds of bones and stones and fossils and things, and I've got like my mummified bat that when I was artist in
Ooh.
residence at the Porcupine Mountains, um, there were a couple that had gotten into the stove and died mummified in there, and so the lady was going to get rid of them. I said, "Well, there you go. I
Like,
have
wait.
I'm taking it home. It's my souvenir." So
And that helps you learn to draw them
yes,
as you, yeah,
yeah,
have
I've
those
taught
things.
classes for about, oh gosh, 25, 30 years to kids, and have brought this bat in particular, still has all of its toes, and having
Wow.
kids draw it. So, it's taking stationary things like rocks and fossils, and if you can find really cool bones out in nature, here's a deer jaw,
A
and
jaw.
just teaching how to draw contour drawings. You use your eye and crawl across the object's outline and draw while you're looking at it, or gesture drawing, and that you can use with your friends, like your animal friends, your pets, and draw how they're moving in just real quick lines. And those are the things that I've taught kids, and then I've had bats and bones and things out for them to draw. So
Love
that's
that.
always a way to start.
So what are you working on now? What are you working on now?
Well, right now I've been getting illustration um, commissions from people, and I'm working on a book, and I hope to have that done soon. And I just got another interested client who wants to tell a story of an adventurous chipmunk, so I'll be working on that. But my own books, I've got a fishing adventure book, and that I hope to get out this year sometime as soon as I finish these other projects. And that was a
Yeah.
crazy story when I was a teenager. And then I've got another chapter book, a series about an urban Sasquatch. And of course,
Ooh.
living in the national forest where I do, there's lots of stories about the forest people and in this area in particular. So
I keep thinking this is the year. This is the, if there's any year we're going to discover Bigfoot, this is going to be the one. We got all kinds of weird stuff going on out there.
oh, I
This would
know. It's
be the
like
year.
this. Yeah, they're
He's
going to
going
be out of hiding and like, all right, you guys go.
to aliens or Bigfoot or both. This is
Right.
going to be the year
Yeah.
that happens because this is just a weird year.
Yeah, it is. That's I'm doing another book on our bog too,
Oh,
animals
nice.
in the bog. So, and you have carnivorous plants that live down there.
Yes, I saw that on your Facebook page. I saw the carnivorous plants that you had out
Yeah.
there. That was very intriguing too. Very, talk about weird and wacky plants. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a bunch of
Yeah.
them. It's
Well,
just, it's such a great place, just full of diversity, with the marsh and the bog and the lake and the woods. And so there's always something.
well, one of these days I am going to get out there to visit. I am.
Yeah, you need to
Just-
fly and go by Jeep and
right. I don't know. It's not that far. It's what an hour or two from me. And I should say that Lori, the Hollywood series, those are all Michigan based
right.
books, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Right.
Those are Michigan based. What else do I have? I have retold some Native American legends and Crazy Cat and Don't Chase That Rabbit. And so that is another one with following bobcat tracks. And again, that bobcat story of being a kid and hearing the scream out in the woods and the neighbors going out and looking for it because we had chickens. So again, and I modeled the cat after my son when he was a teenager, very angsty. So everybody gets a chance. When
You
you're an
bet.
artist and you have family members, it's like I did Hot Times in the Big Creek Wood, and the beaver is my dad. He was a construction worker and builder, and this was actually a true story of a feud he held with his neighbor in Mayo many years ago. So I get my animal characters and substitute them with family
I
characteristics.
like it. Yep. It's all grist for the mill.
It is. It is. Yep.
Oh, well, what do you want kids to know? Like if you had to leave us with something, what do you want kids to know?
Oh gosh. Um, Stay curious.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just
Absolutely.
go explore. And that's, I don't know, I guess that's the one, because that's what I do. It's like you never know what's outside your door, so
That is
go
true enough.
investigate.
That is true enough.
And with me, I never know, so I carry an
Someday,
air
hopefully, there'll
horn.
be a bear outside of mine. That would be
Yeah,
cool.
yep. I've got pepper spray and air horn by the door. So
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I know it was a kind of a short notice for you,
oh
so I
hey,
really appreciate that.
oh no
We had a
problem at all. Yeah, that's
gap in programming, and I was like,
asking.
"Woo, Lori!"
Yeah.
I watched the bear video, and I'm like, "If Lori wants to come on."
Always, it's great fun. I love
Oh,
talking about the different things. I've had alligators jump at me. I've had manatees like look me right in the nostrils, and so I love sharing those wild animal stories.
that's cool, cool, cool stuff, and I appreciate all of that about you. So, all right.
Oh yeah, and make sure when you are curious, carry a sketchbook.
Yep,
So,
and a
yep,
field journal. Write
yep.
all that stuff
Field
down.
journal, sketchbooks. That's all the same thing. That's
Yep.
I draw from observations and experiences.
Document that
Oh,
what you
yep,
see, what you hear, what you go
yep,
through, so that you can look back at that later and relive that experience.
yep.
Yep,
That's what I do. I have a book
absolutely.
for every journey.
Yep. All right, Lori.
Good
Thank you
luck.
so much for coming on, and I hope you have great success. Again, I'm coming out there. I swear it. At some
Okay.
point, we just got to get past all the coronavirus now. So,
Yep.
and one of these days, we'll get out there and we'll definitely make a video about endangered species and turtles
Yep.
and stuff.
And
So,
we've wild
yeah,
plants. You can hop in a kayak and go see everything.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for
So
being
much.
here. We
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Lori Taylor. I know I learned a lot, and I am super jealous of all her cool pets. So if you are interested in writing and drawing your own nature book, you know how she got started. So go out there. Remember, take a field journal with you and a sketchbook, and get started. And now here's a word from our sponsors.
Do you know what the fastest animal on the planet is? What about the slowest? It might not be what you think. Find out in the book Weird and Wacky Facts About the Fastest and Slowest, part of the Weird and Wacky Planet series by KB Carr. Encounter them wherever books are sold and wrap your wings around your own copy.
And now here's Chuck Darwin with our word of the week.
It's time for the weird and wacky word of the week.
The word of the week is biophobia. It is a noun and means avoidance of contact with animals, plants, or organic materials, or a strong aversion to aspects of the natural world. You'll recall that earlier in the interview, Lori stated that she was afraid of being in nature and of animals when she was a child. The word for that is biophobia. See how many times you can use the word biophobia in a sentence today and impress someone with your genius. Until next week, I am Dr. Chuck Darwin. Cheerio.
Thanks, Chuck. And now here is Captain Jack answering a listener question.
Got a question? Ask the captain.
Ahoy, mateys! This week's question comes from Jimmy in Alabama. Jimmy asks, what is the difference between an artist and an illustrator? Well, Jimmy, while illustrators are considered artists, all artists are not illustrators. Artists use art to communicate thoughts, feelings, and ideas. Illustrators create images for publications and products, usually to show things for commercial purposes. For example, when Mommy makes a drawing for a book, she wants to show you what something looks like. She is making an illustration. If she paints a picture of an animal and hangs it on a wall, she is trying to get you to feel something about the animal. She might use that painting in a book too, but it is more than an illustration. See the difference? Hope that answers your questions, Jimmy. If any of you want to ask me something, just email it to naturejustgotreal@gmail.com. I'm always listening. This is Captain Jack signing off till next week. Bye-bye!
Thank you, Jack. And now here's Tito with this week's Creature Feature.
And now, the Weird and Wacky Weekly Creature Feature.
This week's weird animal is the axolotl. This highly endangered critter is also called a walking fish, but it is not a fish. It's an amphibian. It has small gills like a fish, but is closely related to a salamander. It stays in the water all the time because it never develops into an actual salamander. It can also regenerate a limb if it needs to. A whole limb! The axolotl has a wide mouth and looks like it's smiling all the time. Some of them even have pink hair and blue fingernails. KB thinks it has one of the cutest faces you can find underwater. It's the cutie pie Peter Pan of amphibians. I'm Tito, and I'll see yous all next week.
I hope you enjoyed today's show and learned as much about illustrating and authoring and writing books about nature. I can't wait to go over to Lori's house and play with all her pets. Thank you for listening. Go have an awesome illustrating, authoring adventure in your neighborhood.
That wraps up the show for today. Thank you to our sponsor, Weird and Wacky Planet. And thank you for listening. Thank you for caring, and thank you for sharing. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Let us know if you do, and we might mention you on the show. Until next week, go have an adventure in your neighborhood.